today to talk about Tokyo 2020. So, buzzwords in the industry, Olympics and major events. So we're here today to look at the opportunities around the next Olympic Games, look at the key tech innovations, and also to assess the market and the business culture to give you some kind of insight whether you do want to be involved. My name's Lauren Rogers. I have a business development and brand agency called Burnt Orange. I've done a lot of work with manufacturers building their brands in new territories, and I did a lot of work around the Rio 2016 Olympics.
Hi everybody, I'm Natalie Meyer. I run Tokyoesque. We're a cultural insight agency and our focus is on bridging the Asian and European markets, particularly Japan, which as we know is very different from what a lot of people are used to. And I work from understanding the cultural context from which business decisions are made in Japan and other markets. So this is quite a timely talk for us to be giving, as I literally just got back from Tokyo a few days ago, so I'm still jet lagged. And I was there to introduce a British company that had worked in the London Games to Tokyo, to the Tokyo Olympics Committee and the marketing partners associated with that. So we are working right now with manufacturers that want to enter the Japan market, and I can tell you that there are a lot of opportunities there.
Okay, so just taking a little look at the Games. The ceremony is often considered the greatest show on earth. It's watched by approximately 1 billion people and will account for over 19% of all social media that day. As we know, it's not only about the Games and the events themselves, it's the regeneration of infrastructure and town planning that happens along with it. So depending on which area of the AV industry you're in, whether you're a manufacturer, a distributor, whether you have an event-based overlay product or it's an installed product, there really is a lot of opportunities to be involved and get your technology in the right hands. Now, looking at how we experience sport these days, we're really looking at creating experiences. And I know that this is something which is a bit of a buzzword here at ISE this year. It's about these integrated experiences. So looking at where people can engage fans more is very important. Now, London 2012 really changed things with sports technology. It really looked to provide much more of an experience around the medal ceremonies and things like that. So you can expect to see a lot of that at this particular Games. As I said, tech is going to be paramount to engage fans here. At the end of the Rio Games, CNN reported, "Goodbye Rio, hello robots." This is supposed to be one of the most futuristic games that we've seen to date, and there's been reports of man-made meteorite showers, robots driving things around. So what you can really expect to see is, it's a real opportunity to bring out technology innovation. And it's really an opportunity for Japan to prove their economic revival. Now, I know a lot of organizations who, following on from London 2012, tried to get involved in the Rio 2016 Olympics, and some of it was met with mixed success. In Rio, you had a lot of delays, there was a lot of corruption, you didn't see the technological advancements or innovation that you did at London 2012, which I know had left some people with a bitter taste in their mouth, whether they were looking to provide broadcast facilities or whether they actually spent a lot of time strengthening their distribution networks in the territory for greater access to the market. It was met with, a little bit of a sour taste in people's mouths. But what we can assure you today is that Tokyo is going to be very, very different.
Yeah, so just comparing the scale of Japan versus Brazil and the UK, if you look here, you can see that Japan is the third highest country in the world for GDP, and it's almost the combined total of Brazil and the UK. So that's nothing to scoff at. And 3.4% of GDP is invested in R&D each year. And it's also the second largest AV market in the world out after the US. So economically, there's a lot more opportunities compared to what there were previously. But even more than that, I think it's important to look at the cultural differences from Japan versus Brazil and the UK. If you use the Hofstede's 6 dimensions methodology, which looks at cultures around the world and is a way to compare and contrast them, you can see that in Japan, they have a very high level of uncertainty avoidance. This means that they're risk averse. The Japanese are very, very much nearly obsessed with planning and preparation and doing their research. And this also leads into the importance of relationship building as you work together with them. Similarly, they also have a long-term orientation, much more so than the UK or Brazil. In Japan, it's about planning for long-term gain rather than short-term gain. And this means that if you actually get involved with the Olympics, the benefits can increase, not just to the Olympics and immediately after, but to many years after that. And also Japan is quite a masculine society, which means it's very traditional. And because of this, there's sometimes a lot of bureaucracy and a bit of a labyrinth to navigate as you're trying to get involved in the games. But again, as a Western or foreign company going into Japan, we have a lot to offer because we have different styles of doing business, and Japan understands that it wants to be more global and more forward-facing. Individually, there's not a lot of individualism in Japan. It's more about the community rather than the personal ambition of the individual.
Okay, so you might be here today because you were involved in 2012 or 2016, or maybe you're looking into it. But let's just quickly have a look at the scope of opportunities, just to give everyone a little bit of a reminder of the numbers. This is a 4.8 billion global audience. 500,000 visitors will go to sponsor showcases. 235,000 simultaneous park guests will be at venues at any one time. And there are over 400 audio and display systems. And something to remember is each of these venues have multiple systems per venue, you know, from broadcasting to athletes warm-up to, you know, press conference, press rooms. The opportunity is huge from an audio-visual perspective. Ceremonies. This is often a place where you can see technology firsts, and Tokyo will definitely be following that. You can remember in London there were 70,000 individual LED screens placed around the stadium to create an immersive experience. That is something we can expect to see in 2020. Well, not exactly that, but definitely industry firsts. Non-games events. It's not just the games themselves. In 2019, we'll have the test events, which will run through each and every sport. There's the international fan zones, the official fan zones, the cultural Olympiad. So even if you're not directly involved with the games, there's definitely something for you if you're interested in overlay. And as we mentioned earlier, it's the increased investment into infrastructure, so rail projects, airport projects, hotels, accommodation. There will be a lot of opportunity coming up, especially within the next 6 to 12 months. Depending on what you're doing, we'd like to speak to the people here who might be doing creative content. Sponsorship is also something to look into. There are over 22 official partners and 15 gold partners at the Olympics. So, you know, it might be a way to actually start penetrating the market, to look at people you might have existing relationships with, perhaps at Coca-Cola or McDonald's or, you know, anything like that, because all of these organizations will have brand activation events aside from what we've already discussed. And let's not forget they have the 2019 Rugby World Cup, which is an additional 12 stadia that will be being refurbished across the country. So needless to say, it's definitely a market that you should be looking into.
And I'm sure a lot of you know that this isn't the first Summer Olympics that Tokyo has hosted. The first one was in 1964. And at that time, Japan had a much different place on the world stage than it does now. Back then, it was about reconstruction and demonstrating that Japan could be a global power on par with other countries. So that was when the release and the launch of technologies like the bullet train came about. And Japan was really able to show that it could be equal to other powers. But now, leading up to 2020, Japan has had a bit of a slump in the last 15, 20 years. It's got problems of aging societies, and the goal now is to demonstrate that Japan can be back in the global spotlight. We all know that it's a modern country, but Japan also wants to show that it can remain innovative and exciting to be a part of. So one of the goals leading up to the Tokyo Games is to increase tourism going into the country. The original goal was to add 20 million tourists annually by 2020. That's actually already been surpassed. So what we've got now is a doubled goal to 40 million tourists by 2020. And when you walk around Tokyo, you can actually feel the difference in the air. It feels a bit more international. It feels like actually it's no longer important to only consider the Japanese audience, but also the foreign audience and whoever is coming into Tokyo to take part in that exciting atmosphere.
And just kind of a little bit of a history for procurement to date. There were some major projects that started happening in 2013 to get the town ready in terms of relocating one of the famous fish markets. These processes had to go into second and third tender administration because of the fact there wasn't the skilled labor there at the time to do that. So if you do have the skill, it is definitely something to look into, because despite the fact it is a rather mature market, there is definitely the capacity there. And with regards to budget, like we've seen with the Olympic Stadium, which was due to be one of the largest projects in Tokyo, originally designed by Zaha Hadid, they've actually changed designers to ensure that it's more economically viable. I think it's now Kengo Kuma has designed the main stadium, but you can expect to see that level of innovation with their budgeting. I think it was last week they announced that they'll be making the gold medals out of old mobile phone parts. So as opposed to, taking away from the experience, they're really looking at new innovative ways to fulfill their budget requirements. So let's just take a really very quick look at the venues. Old venues are being rebuilt at the heart of the heritage zone. There'll be 10 new facilities built in the Tokyo Bay Zone, and legacy is paramount. So if you have been involved in 2012, they're going to be doing a cut and paste, and there's a real opportunity to leverage anything that you've done. So just to reiterate, there'll be 39 competition venues. The Olympics and Paralympics villages will be created from scratch, and final plans have been drafted for 5 new venues, including the aquatic centre and the velodrome, which are often very nice projects to be involved in indeed, and 8 permanent new build stadia, all looking to showcase leading technology and leading engagement technology for fans, which we'll talk about in a moment. As I mentioned, there's 2 clusters, which is the Heritage and Tokyo Bay Zone. But if you do want to be involved, it's very important that you start to understand the complexities of the city.
Yeah, so Tokyo itself, it is a city, but it's also a city full of other cities. There's different parts of it, and the way they interact can be quite complicated. So it's important to understand how to identify the various centers of Tokyo and understand the infrastructure of the city going into it. As an example, in London 2012, it was clear that the rings were going to be put on Tower Bridge. That was the main spectacular. With Tokyo, no one yet knows where that center is going to be. So these are all things to take into consideration. And also, if we look at the purchasing chain, Japan is known for its complexity of the bureaucracy and the hierarchy of things going into it. One thing I'd like to point out is that the Tokyo Olympics Committee does not have the same power that the London Olympics Committee had. Whereas with London, it was LOCOG making a lot of the decisions and the city executing those decisions. With Tokyo, it's the Tokyo Metropolitan Government that has the decision-making power in this sense. So last year, they actually launched a portal featuring the tenders, and this was only available in Japanese. And it's not clear yet if companies from outside Japan are even going to be able to apply. So from my opinion and in my perspective, it's not going to be Western companies present in these bids, but Western companies have a lot to offer the companies that do win these bids.
And something to bear in mind if you have been involved, it's not just about the technological expertise you can offer. If you have been involved in any of these procurement processes, you can realize just how much red tape there is to get around, how much paperwork, all of the administration. So understanding that workflow, the acronyms, the bureaucracy will be very, very useful to a Japanese organization who is indeed bidding for something like this. So one of the key takeaways for today is really to know your market before you pounce. There is going to be a massive advantage for people who are involved in major events or who have areas of their portfolio which can really add value to any of these projects. What we would hopefully inspire you to do is really look into joint partnerships. That is going to be very, very key here. Joint ventures are very, very important. And doing your research, do you understand exactly who the market leaders are, what you need to do to be able to make an informed and educated decision?
So part of doing your research is understanding the cultural sensitivities that goes into working with the Japanese business. And one of the main things is the importance, and I've mentioned this before, of relationship building. You want to show that you're committed enough to come to the meetings, fly over to Japan, not only just have face-to-face meetings and exchange business cards, but also take part in drinking together in the evenings and getting to know each other on a more personal level. In Japan, they actually talk about something called drinking communication, nominication in Japanese, which means that you're sort of communicating through drink. So it's all intertwined in Japanese society. Also the importance of timekeeping and convenience. You want to be looking out for your partner and demonstrating that you care about this relationship, and by doing that you'll do little things like never be late, give gifts if you're meeting them after a long time, taking care of all the little things for them. And then finally there's the idea of I call it gambarimasu culture, which means I'm going to do my utmost, my absolute best at this at all times. And if you look at Japan, I'm sure a lot of us know that it seems to work like clockwork. Everything is smooth and it seems effortless. But in actuality, there's 100% effort going into things at all times in order to get that smooth interaction. And if you, as a non-Japanese company, can demonstrate that you're able to put in as much effort, then actually you're going to be very valuable for that Japanese partner.
So again, if you're a manufacturer, how's your distribution network working there? Can that be improved? Tokyo has a very healthy technology industry, but that does not mean that there's not an opportunity to improve your operations there to ensure that you can make the best out of these opportunities. As a design firm or consultancy firm, what can you actually leverage? Are there any relationships you have at the moment? If you were to partner with someone, can they offer you any particular complementary skills? These are things to start looking at. And as a creative agency, again, start looking at the relationships you have in your home territory and seeing if there's any way that you can actually use that to get a personal recommendation, because that is going to be something which is we'll see a lot in the years to come.
So what technology can we actually expect leading up to the games? Well, there's been a lot of talk about the importance of visual technology in Japan. Visual technology is going to be a big part of the games, especially super high vision 8K video. As I'm sure a lot of us know, 33 million pixels, global events 4 times the sharpness of 4K. And the main Japanese broadcaster to be handling this is the NHK, and they're transmitting it to the consumer market. They've already actually done tests with it using the Rio Games.
As we mentioned earlier, connected stadiums is going to be something that you see a lot. Japan is going to be really focusing on the Internet of Things, and what they're going to be doing that for is really for hospitality and a tour guide system. So looking at ways that particular things can be translated into multiple languages at the one time. NFC technology has been used in Japan since 2004, as well as beacon technology, which will be active throughout the city and throughout the venues for providing further interconnectivity. Really, as we said, around the navigation and information network. Now, the Digital Signage Consortium of Japan has stated that this is really an opportunity to put Japan at the very forefront of the digital signage industry. How successful they'll be at some of these endeavors, we don't know, but they're doing a lot of research and development into touch, odor, taste, and hearing technologies. We know that there's a lot that can be done currently with facial recognition, but they're really looking at this as a way that they can further engage with people. I'm not sure how you can make digital signage taste something, but look, it's, by 2020 we'll be in the land of the future.
Right, so I think it's important to talk about the difference in the Western versus the Japanese mindset when thinking about what the overarching tech themes are going to be for Tokyo 2020. So if we take a simple problem like getting around on the metro, in Japan, you can see a very different solution than what you might see from a Western perspective. In the West, we take a problem like how to get somewhere and we say, okay, let's make this simple and easy to understand and minimalist. We'll use easy to understand iconography and people will be able to get from A to B so easily. And it works. And in Japan, what happens is they solve the exact same problem with a different way. The Japanese look at that problem of iconography and signs and how to get somewhere and they say, we're going to make this the most functional sign ever. You're going to be able to get wherever you want, any way you want, anyhow. So what they end up doing is creating something that looks from a Western perspective like a lot of noise. You get into the metro in Tokyo and you get overwhelmed because you don't know what means what. You don't know the foundational structure of those signs. So this is why you end up getting differences in how you solve problems in Japan versus the West. And with one of the goals being that Japan wants a more outward-facing market, the Western companies actually have a lot to offer in the ability to sort of mix minimalist solutions with the Japanese functionality. So that's something that you should consider. Do you have something that you can sort of teach Japanese companies that might be valuable to them? Also, there's been a bit of, in Japanese politics and business lately, there's been a bit of a controversy over work and issues with the traditional nature of work in Japan. So if a Western company can demonstrate positive values for business and things like that, they'll have a lot to offer Japanese companies. Two, there's a lot of showcase for developing technology leading up to 2020. And so that's a place that you can go to demonstrate your technologies and hopefully get acquired or utilized by Japanese companies like NEC, Fujitsu, and other companies like that.
Yeah, we did a lot of research into the market leaders before this presentation, and one of the things that we can say is that based on the conversations that we had, is apparently they're very open to expanding their portfolios with new technologies. So if you do have something that you don't mind being OEM'd, don't be afraid of the national technology market leaders there, because again, there is an opportunity to partner with people. There will be the capacity. It's definitely something that you should be considering, not being somewhat frightened about the infrastructure that's already there.
So we did some interviews with experts related to the AV industry, and one of the places we spoke with was the Japan Audio Society, which is a great resource if you're working in this sector. The chairman of the society pointed out, what we've said, the primary technological aim for Japan is to engage the public in the enjoyment of audio and video through further developments in 4K and 8K. And he also pointed out that if you're able to help keep costs down, like if you have access to more efficient procurement supplies, or you have better technologies that are more efficient, that'll be valuable. And also partnerships and cooperation with Japanese companies as a team will be helpful as well.
Okay, so another organization that we actually spoke to was the JVRA, which is the Japanese Video Rental Association. Now, they represent 41 of the largest event rental and staging companies in Japan. So someone you might want to check out if this is the area of your industry operating in, as a little bit of a resource for you. But here he said, we expect to collaborate with foreign firms, not only for the games, but also for pre-events, conventions, and others. We can succeed with foreign firms that understand the Japanese way of thinking and sense of teamwork. He really outlined an ambition to excel in visual production by collaborating with world-class content and producers. So again, they're not expecting to do this all themselves. They want these games to be the best that they can, and they expect to do that with collaboration with companies who have worked in major events. As we have seen earlier, you can expect 4K and 8K technology, as well as VR and AR experiences. So there will be a lot of projection mapping, I imagine, as well. And what they're really counting on and what they're working on is for LED advancements and projector speed advancements to be able to create 3D content and to produce better real-time tracking. So you can expect to see some quite stunning performances there.
And finally, we also spoke with an import-export company in Japan, W&R, and they've been operating for nearly 40 years in the marketplace. And the business development director there had actually a really good point. He said that you can avoid the corporate maze of Japan and the big corporations if you consider approaching smaller companies instead. So these smaller companies might be smaller, but they are just as entrenched in the industry, and they've already spent a lot of time building up those relationships that are so important. Similarly, the other thing he mentioned about getting through all the red tape is to consider what your service is. If it's more intangible, there are fewer taxes associated with it. Also, AV equipment actually has comparatively less import tax compared to other categories.
So key takeaways. I mean, really, it's going to be all about joint ventures. Look at what you can offer from a technology perspective, from a design perspective, but also what you might be able to assist with in terms of your understanding of dealing with the procurement processes that need to take place if you have been involved in them in the past.
Yeah, and once again, consider the cultural differences. Think about who knows someone in Japan, get personal recommendations, go over there, set up meetings, show that you're committed to it, and finally do your research for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and consider your objectives, really. Look at, who the market leaders are, who you would partner with culturally, and what that partnership might look like. Working with an organization who shares the same values and the same sense of quality of work is going to be really important. And we are always here to talk further. We are helping several manufacturers within the territory. So if you're interested in speaking with us, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.